All right,
from
this
the
is a really
shiniest
fun.
shiniest forehead in the land, coming at ya with good signs.
This is going to be a quick intro because somebody needs to go get a glass of wine, and it's not me for once.
Yes, but another episode of Good Signs where we talk about a lot of really, really big ones. I'm quite excited for this episode. Love to hear what you think of it. But we talk about how addiction has a new frontier, which is basically everybody's addicted to building in AI. And we'll explain what that means and why I am part of that crew.
Yes, 100% you are. Yeah, entering MEDICI 2.0.
MEDICI 2.0, which is basically about brand patronage and what you should be doing there. We're going to talk about biohacking getting booed, like sort of the pendulum swing to it, and like the other side of it. Like these two things are living at once, but there is a louder growing conversation around anti-optimization.
Yes, all connected.
We're going to talk about the fact that physical, like worlds like that seamlessness is actually maybe finally here, and some examples of that and what that means. And then also an interesting pendulum swing. And then the very last thing that we're going to talk about is the caretaker generation, which I contend is going to be potentially one of the biggest areas of the AI build era and like one of the hugest markets to be working in the future. So.
Yes. Yeah. I think, really excited. They're all kind of 5 different topics that I think can have their own pod, much deeper dive, and we haven't yet really kind of talked about that are clearly bubbling up. So have a listen. Let us know what you think.
Enjoy. Hey everyone, it's Chris.
And Kirsten.
Welcome to Good Thinking Weekly, the podcast where we discuss the best of the best in brands, marketing, and culture.
Thousands of people, top execs from the likes of Complex, Klaviyo, Walmart, Wall Street Journal, and LVMH tune in every single week.
We run a creative consultancy in GoodCo, so we know what it takes to build a good brand.
Subscribe on YouTube, your favorite podcast app, and Good Thinking on Substack for more.
All right, let's dive in.
And welcome to Good Thinking, another episode of Signs.
Yes, Good Signs, which is turning out to be basically our most popular podcast every month. So thanks for the love. That's very nice. Love to hear that it's valuable. So should we just dive right in? I mean,
let's just dive right in. I know you do, and I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, I am birthing a longer article, but it's taking a while to birth.
You're birthing a few things over there right now, just to be clear, on top of all of the client stuff that's going on top of all of the South by Southwest stuff that's going on. So yes.
Yeah, well, and I think it relates to the first sign. So the first sign I'm saying is addiction has a new frontier. So we used to have drug addiction, alcohol addiction, screen addiction. We now have building addiction. That is where we're at. So building, in case you have not been on the internet, and apparently like a lot of people aren't on the internet the way that I'm on the internet right now. I think I do actually have to give an explanation of what's happening.
It's a specific thing. Like I'm on the internet.
But something is really happening. Like something
I think you have to kind of share a little bit of intel around what building is.
Yeah. So what I'm talking about and when I'm talking about building is I'm not talking about Claude Code, but I'm talking about Claude Code. This is the way it's happening, but it's like Claude Code is a brand term. It's like Kleenex, right? Like just think of me saying, when I say Claude Code, and you should think Kleenex, and it could just be a ttissue, right? Like insert
I'm
brand
following
name
your thinking.
here.
Right.
Essentially, like what is happening over the last 3 months is there has been an enormous improvement of like how you can use Claude Code. I mean, again, there are ways for you to do it on OpenAI, but no one's really doing it. Really, most people are doing it with Claude Code or Cursor.
Yeah,
but,
I mean,
I'm going to unpack what I'm doing.
Even a step back from that of like, because I hear Claude Code and it's like, well, I wasn't using that anyway. So a step up from that like doesn't mean anything to me. Whereas like you weren't a Claude Code user and like you delved into this world and it just like, changed everything.
Yes, I have become like the ground underneath my feet is gone.
Right. And that's for another day.
For me
but I think
is
just setting it up.
Yeah, which I think it's important to talk about, like, and we'll talk about it briefly, and then we'll talk about it in a bigger way on a different podcast. But, I think, like you said, like, I wasn't using Claude Code. I decided to fire it up because of everything that everyone had been telling me. And I have been building, like, and addicted to building things ever since. So what Claude Code, as opposed to, like, Claude LLM or OpenAI, ChatGPT, or Google Gemini, all of which I use, right? Like, in varying degrees. And they're all kind of like, in my opinion now, they all feel a little bit weak, but they're all useful in their own way. But what Claude Code can really do is build, right? So you can talk to Claude Code. I do it through the terminal. Some people use the app. Some people do it on the browser. I wouldn't do that. But it's just not as useful because it's not able to access things. But
I'm probably going to have to default to the app, but yes, I hear you.
Yeah. You can create things. And so, like, in 3 hours, like, a couple weeks ago, I created a peptide app for you and Jenny, a B2B side, a B2C side for you. Like, you could track your, like, but, like, I literally built an app that could be on the App Store, like, as is, in 3 hours. It looks nice.
Which is incredible.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. And because peptides are such a complex thing of, like, different days, different things, like, it's really, really complicated. I have spreadsheet on spreadsheet. And so for you to be able to do that is quite useful and needed. And then to be able to do it in such a short period of time and have it, like, do all the things is incredible.
You used to, like, people have created entire agencies, like, off of how difficult it is to create apps, right? Obviously. Right. And now I, person who literally cannot code a single line of code, can create an app in like, literally an afternoon. And when I say 3 hours, like, I'm actually working on other things during a lot of those 3 hours. Like, I'm going back in and I'm helping it along and giving it kind of advice and tweaking it. And, like, but most of the build stuff happened in the first 30 minutes. And then I was like, I need it to do this. I'd like it to do this. Let's add this functionality. I'd like this button to go here. I don't want this here.
Amazing.
And I went from, like, that 3 hours to waking up every single morning and thinking, what can I build? I was like, I'm going to build the job board. But I'm obsessed. Like, I am obsessed. And I built our job board, which hasn't gone live yet. The only reason it hasn't gone live yet is that you and I, 2 human beings, have to connect to get into our GoDaddy account. And that is the impossibility that it can actually do that. I could probably have it, like, ping you every day at the right time, but, like, that would be annoying. But, like, that's the holdup there. Like, let's be clear. The building of this thing is not the holdup, that's not where things used to be. The roadblock to building was, I don't have the technical ability, or I don't have the design capabilities, or I don't know enough about this. Like, none of those exist anymore. You can build anything you want in 3 hours, 2 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, which is, that's so game-changing in so many ways.
And I truly, like, I wake up and I'm like, what could I, like, so yeah, like, you could improve a system that you already have. So, like, I also created I gave it every single newsletter that I've ever written. And because, like, if you've ever been on Substack, like, literally typing in one word is more than Substack search can handle. Like, if you type 2 words, it's like, I can't find anything. I can now search, like, anything I want and just be like, hey, like, I know I wrote about this, and it can just pull it up for me and open the newsletter and show me where it is. No problems. And I just create new things all the time. And my, like, sounds like this is just me. It is not just me. There is everybody. So Spotify's CEO.
I love this. Yeah. Share the specifics.
Yeah. So, like, in the coding world, you have something called commits, right? It's where you put in, like, sort of like the code changes. It's like, and you make a commit. It's not important, but, like, it just helps to know the language. So, like, they have this graph of, like, you can see how many commits, like, the CEO has made. And 2 years ago, he made, like, 45 commits in a year, right? But that makes sense for a CEO. Like, he shouldn't be in there doing the product. 2 years ago, anyway, he shouldn't have been in there. Year ago, he's, like, got 125 commits or something. In this year, he has something like 1,000 commits in the first 40 days. And this is what I think has really changed, is it is put people who used to be builders who kind of come out, like now they are kind of like both like forefront of vision and building at the same time once again, right? But it's also like just democratized building in general. And so it's on every layer, right? It's like leadership is building and they're showing like, hey, I have this vision. And so instead of like what you used to do as a leader would be to say, hey, I have this idea. Hey, person who doesn't have any time, who has 1,000 meetings, can I pull you aside and like help you? Like, can you help me like put together a way to show like what I want to do? Because I actually don't have time to go in and like actually create this for myself because I'm in 1,000 meetings. Now you just literally have Claude build it for you. And you're like, this is what I want. This is my idea. And it might not be right, but it's at least like, instead of like talking about the idea, you are now building the idea and showing that as a possibility. And it has just completely changed, I think, the way it should be changing the way that everybody is working. Because now we've all become, and this is going to be unpacked on the larger topic, but like the big takeaway that I have is that we're moving, like if you look at AI, and my husband hates that I'm doing this, but I'm like, artificial intelligence isn't the A. Artificial is not the A in AI. It's authorship. Like we are now all turning into authors of the vision, right? Like we are all turning into the ability to create the vision and author it in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
So what that opens up for people is wild. But what I want to talk about here is that people are truly addicted to doing this. Like anybody who kind of touches this that I know of can't untouch it. It's like opening Pandora's box of possibilities. And what's interesting though, like, and this is where I think the longer essay will go into, is like, what does that mean for people when it comes to your brand, right? Like if we all turn into authors, like how do we all start to interact? And I think that the world is very different. But so anywho, like what I have as examples of kind of like the addiction frontier is this guy, Nikunjan Katari, like who, I'm butchering that name, but he writes a great Substack. He's, I think he's a VC, or at least kind of in the private equity world or something like that. He invests in companies. But what's interesting is that how he's viewing it is like he's creating products for himself so that he can go have more in-person meetings. Like he's like, that's where the like actual value of my business is, right? Like most people don't invest in like just a good idea. They invest in the founder. The only way to really get to know a founder is to meet in person with them and really connect with them and to see where they're going. So he's building, he's addicted to building because it makes him better at the best part of his job, right? And I just think that that's such a like, again, like like there's a lot of people who are like, like, you know, like AI and taking everybody's job. But like, no, like maybe it's actually making you fundamentally better at your job, the part that you are really good at. So that, and also it's fun to build. Like it is so fun. And I think that this is like where this is why I think it will be so big, is that much like your screen and like being like sucked into the phone is very fun. And much like watching a great sitcom is very fun, building is very, very fun. And that's why I think people will become increasingly like desperate to do this. Like it's not, so we are on the precipice of like, and he was like, this guy was using the example, like now watching TV is like not very fun because it's like, hey, I can like actually go do this other thing that feels way more fun. And this is something that like I like my husband like is like, please stop doing this. But I was lying in bed the other day and I was about to go to sleep and I was like, oh, I could ask Claude to do something. And I was like, I got up and I like go over to it and I like set it off and then I go to bed. But like, I was like so excited to do it. It wasn't like but there will come like, and I think there will be this pendulum swing to this of like, that we can talk about more of like with like the ability to create anything, like how do you create meaningful things and like, how do you create meaning? But also like so much like decision making and doing and like, because ultimately like you still are the decision maker in this. Like you will want to kind of retreat from that. But one thing that was also interesting here is that Nothing, which is the headphones that I have, and like really what I see to be like the first like true, like from a brand perspective, the first true challenger to Apple's domain. or dominance is nothing released on their phones. Like now it's not hidden on the back end. It's not hidden in a terminal. It's literally part of the true OS. Instead of like, just like, here are the apps and you can download them from the store, you can literally go in and say, hey, I'd like a running app that does this, this, and this, and this, and it builds it directly in the phone. And that, I think, is, again, like, that's the easier layer. Like, I think other people are building more complex things than apps. Like, I don't want anyone to walk away from this and all you can do is create apps.
Right.
You can create a lot.
Yeah, but an amazing apps.
But apps are one. And I think that this will really, truly change the future, you know? Like, I think it's this 19-year-old that I have in here who, like, is a Y Combinator-backed startup, like, doing, like, cattle herding. And he built an AI, like, business. But how did he build this AI business? Let me tell you. He used Claude Code and all of these other building tools in order to create this. And that will be, I think, surely, like, one of the things, like, everyone's like, like, all the kids want to be influencers. It's like, no. Let me tell you that you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right. They all want to be entrepreneurs. Yeah, I mean, we've unpacked this a little bit, and I think what's interesting about this one is it has such a large impact in so many ways. Like, it can be the authorship, but it's like taking what was a napkin sketch and like bringing it to life from an ideation standpoint and being able to articulate and share that, whether it's the final iteration or whether it's just an idea. And I think then, you know, just the world that we're creating and just seeing the changes over the past couple of weeks of you, the excitement, like there's so many deep dives within this kind of larger sign that I think it's really, we do have to kind of unpack it separately, but I just think it has so much reverberation around.
Yeah. And then, so the pendulum swing to the addiction is, which I would call being like a new frontier of effort, right? Is the complete opposite, which is the perpetual, frustrating lack of effort by people, which continues to be normal, right? So like ChatGPT created this swag box that I talked about in the last newsletter. Like, they sent out a swag box that had a basketball pin, some socks, like literally like just branded merch. Like this is the brand that is on the frontier of changing civilization, right? Like literally. And they're sending you a pin to talk about it. Like the lack of effort is sensational. So I think the pendulum swing is like people are continuing to like kind of put in low effort, but I think it's only a matter of time before they get called out for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a much larger brand conversation. Like, I think you're seeing people Claude was hard to use yesterday because it was down because they had so many people switching from chat to Claude because of brand, because of a lot of...
They also lost a data center due to a missile, but like that's the other.
But I think there's a lot. My point being is, I think, we've talked about certainly that AI has not necessarily been, brand forward. I think they've started to, try to kind of find their way within that with different ad spots, say as you will. But I think really understanding and leaning into that more and more and kind of putting more effort in from a brand standpoint, understanding there's all of these variables now. I think they're going to consider that deeply. And this is a perfect example of why that needs to happen.
I would use it as like ChatGPT is one. And like, I agree with that. I also think, like I mentioned in the newsletter, like Gap put out, like, did this collaboration with like sushi something. And then you like, it sounds like this incredible, cool, like interesting, like, invite only sushi one-time event with, like Nobu, and should be like the coolest thing ever. And they created like a black and white interview with the guy from Nobu in a sweater. Like, it was like, what are you doing, guys? And I think it just continues to be like, to me, like, I would rather see brands spend their time figuring out why they matter and like that, like, and doing things related to why they matter. And I think that as this age of building increases, I think that conversation will get even louder.
1,000%. And I'm here for that conversation for sure. Okay.
All right. Now to move on.
Yes.
Switching gears. We're entering MEDICI 2.0.
Great.
So for those of you who don't know anything about history, the MEDICI era.
Educate me.
Well, there's a lot going on with Medici's, but like one of the things that they're most well known for, which is why it's the title here, is their patronage of the arts and of like doing like of actual like putting their money into culture, right? Like not siphoning off of culture. And I brought this up in several letters. Like, I think that there is, again, I think that this will continue. Like I saw today, there's do you remember Parade underwear?
No. I mean, I vaguely, but that was.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you
Yes,
totally
I
do.
remember
They
it
were
as
like,
a thing, but that was past my.
well, yeah, then they got bought and then they got shut down. It was
Yeah,
like, it was
yeah,
tragedy. And like
yes,
Cami, who was the founder of Parade, has started this new thing called Devotion, which is
yeah,
an AI powered like ability to like connect with gazillions of influencers at scale. And I just want to say that like I have so much respect for her, but like the skepticism that I have for influencer industry in general just
right,
grows by the minute. And this is another example of that. And I think that the influx of just constant influencing is reaching peak,
yeah,
and the trust is at zero.
yes,
And the signs that I'm starting to see of like brands that are saying, hey, rather than just paying people to talk about us in culture, which is essentially what influencer marketing is, right? It's like we're creating culture by having people talk about us in culture. That's not
right.
really creating culture. It's just talking into culture.
It's bypassing
It's not
creating culture. Yeah,
right. But it's like so many people think that is it is not creating culture. Like, let's just be clear. It is not. So what I think is interesting, and like they're doing it to Starbucks example, they're doing it to varying degrees of success, but like they're starting to financially support emerging designers. And then one thing that I did think was interesting is Cotton, which is like a brand that I don't think everyone's familiar with, but it's
no,
like
but
a
this is amazing. Yeah,
sustainable clothing brand. They created a hotel and private residence, and it's a hotel for creatives to go and stay there. Like, again, it's like it's almost like a residency, like they're not talking
mm-hmm.
about it like a residency, like where you're going to sit there for 6 months and create stuff, but like, and just to be clear, like brands being patrons of the arts is not a new idea, but I think that it's something that is re-entering the conversation. And I think that brands that start to do it in a louder way will do well as all of this kind of like proliferation of like talking culture gets louder.
Right.
Which is getting
totally,
right.
Totally. And I think quite honestly, it's not a new thing, but how it's been done in like more typical ways, maybe not traditional, more typical ways has been, oh, let's do a collab. Let's do a collaboration within whatever this art thing is. And these examples are really true, like patroning of the arts, patronage,
yeah.
like actually supporting it versus saying like, hopefully versus saying, oh, we're going to do this cute collab and make designer aprons or whatever it is. So there's that too.
Right. Well, there's that too. We'll talk about that in the next newsletter. Stay tuned. But yeah, like, and then I brought in the example of Aritzia and acquiring Fred Siegel, because one of the things that I thought was interesting, like at first you're thinking to yourself, Aritzia, Fred Siegel, what's going on? And I think it's 100% like a trying to buy brand clout thing, but when they talk about it, and I think it's just the words that are very interesting to me, they framing it as stewarding a beloved brand into a new generation. Like they see it as kind of like, hey, like people liked this brand. It died not because people didn't love it. Like it died for a variety of different reasons.
Real estate.
And well, yeah, real estate, COVID, like it was complicated, right? And like so many brands like die for good reasons, but I'm not sure that Fred Siegel like died because people wanted it to die, right? Like you have Saks going out of business, and I don't think Saks has the same like feel, like people aren't like Saks.
Totally. And I've got a lot of feelings on it. And I think what's interesting about it and what they could potentially do if bar is high, if they do this well. But Fred Siegel wasn't about a brand. It wasn't about this store or that store. Fred was basically real estate. And so it was really the curation of all of these independent shops and stores kind of leading the way within that. So if they're able to take and create that experience of what that looks like today, like that could be huge. And again, like I think it's more art related than necessarily just, here's a collaboration with a brand.
Yeah. I mean, and in a way, like, obviously there was a financial component to Fred Siegel. Like he wasn't doing out of the goodness of his heart, but he was doing it as there was an art form to the curation, right? And there was like,
For
it
sure.
was like a patronage element to it. And I also think from talking about, like, because I get a lot of replies, thank you, and keep doing it. I love hearing from you all. But like a lot of people like wrote to me and they were like, part of what made Fred Siegel amazing was that there was so many events there. There was so much like gathering that happened. There was so much like you felt like you were part of something. Like if you got invited to the events there, like you were really part of like a community of art, like kind of quite artsy people who were maybe in the industry, but like, you know, the creative industry anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I might argue that that was more Ron Herman than Fred Siegel, but there's some like very specific like dynamics within that. But I think regardless, like understanding who is leading the culture, and the restaurant I think was a part of it, and the celebrities within that. And then what Ron created with John and Nina from a visual and experience perspective of really like you wanted to go there. It was such a moment and culture and draw for all of those reasons and more.
Right. But it's adding to culture. And that's 100. The point that I'm making here. And so, like, yes, there's patronage, but it's also like an adopting a view of how are we putting stuff into culture that creates culture versus like, how do we, like, you know, this cool young TikTok artist is doing this thing and then we create a campaign, which is siphoning, right? Like, it's two different things.
I think this is so important because I think, look at these three examples, right? I think Cotton is a perfect example of like fucking well done, like really beautiful. The hotel looks beautiful, like the way that they're doing it, the purpose behind it, amazing. Starbucks, kind of, let's see, because it feels more like, hey guys, here's some money, you know, to kind of go and do this thing, necessarily kind of this more curated point of view. And Aritzia, we're talking about like such an opportunity, and we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah, yeah. And then, so we have like this, like creating culture, putting money into culture, like adding to culture. And then we have the logoing without labor, which I was like, when I read that, I was like, this was like, I should coin this term.
100%. Wait, logoing without labor. Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Is still going strong. And what I mean by logoing without labor is mostly like so as much like, you know, excitement as I have for the building portion of AI, I have a pretty serious disdain for lazy AI. And I think this is an interesting thing because like everything else, like for a really long time, there was a simplifying of like, oh, AI is slop. And then like, that's how we simplified it. And like, you know, it's like everybody when it was like, oh, you know, it's just social media. And so it's like simplifying and othering it. But like actually like there's quite a complex and like worthwhile endeavor to social media, despite what I was saying about influencers earlier. So, you know, we have Carl's Jr. who made a bizarre ad with Paris Hilton. And they like, you know, apologies to the PR team that pitched this to me because they were like, it's really cool that they made it with free pics. And I was like, is it really cool? Like, I'm excited to go see it. And then I was like, saw it and I was like, oh. And it's not to say that you can't create a good AI ad. Like, and I'm not here to like, I'm not going to spend my time like today, like judging whether or not somebody should create with AI. Like that feels like kind of a silly conversation to be having in this moment.
It's going to happen.
Right. It's a little bit like people being like, oh, you shouldn't use CGI. Like there are brands that shouldn't be using AI. There are brands that should be 100% like drawing their ads, but like there's a world between and there still should be craft in the ones that are good, right?
Yes.
And,
yes.
Like
100%.
Kalshi's ad was complete nonsense, right? But at least it had an idea. Like it was deliberately making fun of AI and nonsense. And it was like, we can create this like crazy idea of like what, you know, the world looks like and all these crazy predictions. It was a perspective that used AI in a creative way.
Right.
And it's totally different.
I think that honestly, like, includes everything so far as like the perspective, the idea, the something behind it. Like, use all of the tools that are out there. Great. Same thing with the arts patronage. Like, use it, but like have a perspective on what it is, and it ties back to the meaning. You know, what the fuck is it for?
And then I have a couple of other examples in here. Like Gucci was in the, you know, like LinkedIn sphere death hole this week because of AI. And then Olympics like created, which this is to me the most egregious actually, is like the Olympics created some posters and things that literally like ripped off an artist. And it was like, oh, we created our own version, but it was like of someone else's art. And like that shit I have no time for.
Clearly.
Like, absolutely none.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's no good.
All right. So third one.
Again, I like this title. I'm into it.
I feel like I was really having a moment this week with like the titles and the wording. Yeah. Biohacking is getting booed. So while like we're kind of in this like optimize everything, biohacking baddies, which was all over my newsletter this week, I think there's something else brewing, which is in my mind, like I spend a lot of time on Substack. So it's like one particular like world, but it is extremely loud on the Substack. And I find that like Substack is like an interesting place to watch culture emerge because different parts of culture emerge there than merge other places. Mm-hmm. So certainly not like mainstream yet, but there's sort of this growing like moment of saying like we're doing all the most, like everything is the most with optimization. Like we're getting CO2 laser on our eyes. We're doing every biomarker imaginable. We're like, it's like layering on of all the things to do. And the question is like, maybe we need to be doing less. Like maybe there's value in that. Like maybe we need to go back to, and somebody coined it this week. I think her name's Nadia. I'll link to it if I can, where she was calling it like soft biohacking, which is like ultimately like if you look at biohacking, maybe there's something very fundamental about like wanting to get to the root of your health, and like there's maybe a softer way to get there. We don't have to all be like maxing the situation. Like there's a better way to do it. But like there's on the biohacking boo-ed thing, like that I put in there, like there's also like the wellness anarchist vibes, but there's also like Diet Coke being like, yeah, we're not a health product and we're totally fine with that. Like we're a fridge cigarette, like great. Like, like it's the opposite of biohacking, right? It's like, yeah, like we're here. We're sugar in a can and we're here for a good time. And then there's sleep vacations of like people literally like going on vacation just to sleep, which you could argue, I will say, because of Aura is related to biohacking. Like I think that people are seeking it because they're biohacking, they're like, or at least tracking and optimizing. And then they're like, but the argument being made here is actually like people are trying to like just do less. Like it's not like you go and you're doing all the treatments and all the this and all the stuff that's kind of happening now, which is a very loud conversation.
Right. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm here for both ends of this. As my Peloton instructor said this morning, it's about adding life to your years, not years to your life.
Ooh.
I know, right? Robin, go.
Look at Robin. Unpacking it for all of us. But then to the kind of pendulum swing is like Brian Johnson created this like literally like $1 million a year subscription. I mean, I just love this like on such a like ridiculous level. Like I just love it. But I can understand why a lot of people hate it. Like, but it's it only needs one slot open to work, which is why I love it. Like it's just so audaciously disgusting and funny. But it's so interesting, right? Like, I think it's kind of interesting what he's doing.
Totally.
And he has 3 spots, and it's $1 million a year, so really, really expensive. And he got 1,500 people signing up in the first 30 hours. There's 1,500 millionaires who are like, yes, I want what he's having. And to be clear, like when you look into what he's having, it is not easy stuff. Like it is not. It is not like lying in an amortal chamber for a couple hours. Like It is potentially torturing yourself and doing really, really, which goes to something that I wrote about in the newsletter of like Gen Xers, like seeking paincations, like seeking like sort of intent. And I talked about potency in the 2026 travel stuff, but like it was related to that of people like wanting to go and like, like hike the craziest mountain and like do it without like shoes on and like, like cut off one arm before you start just to make sure it's too difficult enough, and like this is actually that like it's not easy. So.
Right. I mean, I think both of these conversations seem to be getting louder, which I think is the interesting thing. And in the notes here, right, it's like both things, like 2 things can be true, and I think this can be the same person doing all the things.
Yes. And I think like you're great, like for sure, like in the longevity space of like someone who's like, yeah, I should go and like sit on a beach and like, drink wine and like, take it easy. And then, on the other side, like doing the most of the most.
Here for it.
All the American peptides. All American peptides.
Indeed.
Right. Okay, so number 4, I have it's all connected truly. So like we've been talking about like sort of fidgetal and digital fidgetal like forever and ever and ever, right? Like it's always been like, especially in the experiential world, like fidgetal is like everybody's favorite word for a minute, and that was a bygone era.
Took over
like,
lore.
Yeah. No, it was just like a really long time ago. People were really into that word. But like what's interesting now is the way that AI and things are really like for different reasons, and the examples I have here are kind of different, but like they're sort of like there is a true now blending of our digital and physical worlds. Like it used to be like, okay, like you have your phone life, you have your real life, you have your work, a laptop life, right? Like, and maybe your phone and your laptop life, like they intermingled, but they didn't like, unless you like you would just like, it's like two different worlds. Now, like with Spotify has a, so a lot of people, me included, like to read real books, but then also listen to audiobooks. And so, and kind of swap back and forth. Like some people do it when they're driving, which I guess makes much more sense. I do it because I like to listen to the audiobooks when I go to sleep.
Wait, and this is the same book, or this is like you just happen to do both of these things? Yeah, the same book. See, that would be hard for me. Yes.
A lot of people, and like it's interesting because when you're on Amazon, for example, they will actually upsell you on the audiobook. Like they'll be like, would you like both? And people are like, oh yeah, like I'd like to read it on my Kindle or read it physically. And then like when I can't read physically and I have a 1 hour commute, I'd like to also be reading the same book.
And this
is like a common thing that's happening, but no one had ever really like figured out how to like, basically you just have to figure out where in the chapter you were.
Right.
And
that
so
would be the hard
now
thing.
You have an app that you scan it's called Page Match. You scan the page of your book that you ran, and then like it just sets you off like literally on that page in the audiobook, and it's like, and this, like, you know, it sounds very small, but I think you're going to see a lot more stuff like this where kind of AI has the ability to just be smarter, like more engaged in your life, right? Like it's more, I mean, much like OpenClaw, right? And everybody like giving it access to everything that they have. Ultimately, I think we're going to solve the security issue of people doing that. But like what people liked about that was it was suddenly like, hey, I would like to book a restaurant, right? And it would literally, like, if the restaurant didn't have a website, it would call it and just call the restaurant for you. Like, call it on the phone with a real voice. And then it would, like, go back and forth. So, like, you know, it's like these worlds are, like, our worlds are starting to get very, like, the seam is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think Page Match is such a good example because it's clearly like a need, what some people wanted. And it's exactly that. It's a matter of just making it seamless, like not adding on this big thing, not like selling you that, like just really making what you're already doing work better. And who's not here for that?
Yeah. And then the other example I have is Alibaba's Qwen, which is basically Alibaba's version of ChatGPT. But ChatGPT, like if you were like, hey, ChatGPT, like can I have a Starbucks matcha, right? It would be like, yes, you're able to have a Starbucks matcha. You can have these flavors in it, and you can do this and that. But it's just listing out the options, right? Like it's just like in Qwen already, and this is where all AI is going, but it's like Qwen is there already. Like it's like, yes, here's the menu for Starbucks, which like, and you literally within the same, so without going to a new app, without going to another website, you're already in there just like picking it out and it will order you. So for Chinese New Year, and they wanted adoption. They wanted people to use the ChatGPT Qwen. They said to everyone, hey, we'll give you a free boba. The only thing you have to do is order it in the LLM. And so then suddenly they had an entire population, literally, like use the app for the first time ever all at once. So crazy. Yeah, I mean, the adoption is like it, but I think like what's smart about that is that they didn't pick something digital, right? They didn't pick something that feels like, first of all, everybody loves an icy drink. Everybody loves a boba, but like they picked something that felt very real to people. And then they like, and I think that's really interesting. Like that strategy is fascinating.
Yeah. It inherently feels less slick and less salesy and more kind of intimate and human. Yeah.
Right. It's an extension of, it's bettering an extension of your life.
Yeah, but I think these details within these elements are what's really important versus just the, oh, here they did this. So I think it's super important to point out.
And then Apple is obviously, unsurprisingly, as everyone is doing this, OpenAI is also doing this, working on a pendant or some kind of thing that will essentially be on all the time, which will be, again, spur like a kind of crisis of self for many, and like it will spur an entire industry of like not having that. But Siri, like Apple essentially wants you off your phone and to just be like within your life, right? Like much like Siri when you're talking to it, but like it wants to be able to see everything. And because that's how it can be useful. Like it can actually be more useful by being able to see everything, right? Like if it's relying
it can do
on
a
you
lot
to
of things.
Well, but if it's relying on you to pick up your phone and remember to do the versus it's just happening, it can be much more integrated. So I will say, and I've said this like 1,000 times, but like in case you're the first time you're ever listening to this podcast, like the future is voice, the future is screenless. And the brands that are preparing for this more ambient like existence that we're about to have, like will do better. So like now, build now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just downloaded something yesterday that's voice across all the things, apparently. I haven't tried it yet, but Slack and, all of the places. And like, it's how you want to use it. You don't want to be like, oh, and then I'll voice in this, and then I'll change the app and voice in this. Like, I think just making things more seamless across the board, I'm here for. But I'm
we're a year away max from this being a normal thing. The speed of light is like here.
Here, I'm most interested in the swing.
Yes. So the pendulum swing is sort of the really truly like physical objects like changing like and becoming like kind of like pure and simple and it's a very extreme pendulum swing, like it's not really necessarily related at all to the connected AI. But what I thought was really interesting is that Pure Steel created this drip coffee machine that when you open up a drip coffee machine in the back, like you'll see all these plastic wires usually like where the everything goes through, and they created it entirely out of steel, as the name would tell you. So it's 100% plastic free and beautiful looking, like really nice. I mean, I've said that, like, I either think, what is the name of fellow will either knock it off or purchase it, like hopefully the latter. But I think it's really interesting because like this idea of purity, like versus clean has been growing for a really long time in the beauty space. So supplements, like it's not necessarily clean anymore. It's more about purity, like making sure it's free of heavy metals, making sure it's free of plastic, Like the purity is more important than the cleanness, which is different.
I think we need to unpack that a little bit because originally, like in the beauty space, it was like, oh, this is clean, this is clean, this is clean. It was like just this general statement, I think, across the industry that was like, oh, it just had to be this and this and this, and this is kind of the refinement of that.
Clean for a long time was like, oh, it doesn't use these kinds of certain chemicals in your skincare or whatever. And like actually nowadays, like there's an understanding that certain chemicals are fine, and the interest that people have is much more around less is it have no chemicals in it, and like more is it pure, like is it like tested for being free of heavy metals, because that ultimately is like causing a bigger problem for me, or is it free of plastic, or is it free of or microplastics, etc. And this is the first time that not the first time, because like obviously like you and I have like glass kettles and things, so like we've been on this train for a minute. But like I think that conversation of purity in appliances, in like, so where it's like, like now you're going to be looking at your refrigerator and being like, oh, like goodness me, like this entire thing is a box of plastic wrapped in more plastic with a metal layer on the outside, like will start to look different. I think we're going to start to see like the purity angle come into physical products in a very different way.
Totally. And I think like a lot of things that kind of started in the beauty or wellness space, and now it's really moving. And I'm excited for this coffee maker and other things to come.
Yeah. But there's also like, I think we're going to see this purity space in packaging. So like there's a very viral thing that people love to show on TikTok lately of like somebody melting the metal of a can a like soda can or of a can of beans or whatever, and it's showing you the like literal like plastic sack that like has to line the can, and it has to be there for health and safety, otherwise like because the corrosion of the metal, like, so it's truly like something would vastly have to change in the food system in order for that purity. But I think that that is on, again, on the horizon.
Yeah, and I mean, not to give it away, but we are going to talk to Fred and do a little unpacking of the Expo West, so we'll find out some things there.
Yes, I know. Fred's always a great conversation. All right, and then the last one is related to one of my favorite topics.
Indeed. Get on.
But I have been using this term in the last few newsletters in case anyone's noticed. Called the caretaker generation. I don't know if I coined this, I heard it, or whatever, but it's what I'm using. And I think it's, so in case you don't know what I mean by the caretaker generation, like there is a tsunami that is coming towards you that is basically like everyone who's Gen X, maybe even millennials, certainly millennials, older millennials, like who are about to become caregivers of some variety to their parents. And it happens quite, like it's happening to your friends very quickly. It kind of happens very, like my husband has older parents, so it happened to us very quickly. But like, it's kind of like when it happens, it's like, wow, like you're like, it's like being confronted with a wave that you like can't breathe. And there's millions of people who are about to get hit by this wave. And what happens when you get hit by this wave is that you realize that all of the systems that you've gotten used to, where things work on your phone, or you can like text with somebody about stuff, or that you can organize anything like with any digital products whatsoever, is like absolutely non-existent. And what I think will become one of the biggest industries, like one of the biggest things that we're going to see in the next 2 years, is the first thing that we talked about, the build, tackling this. Because this is like, when we talk about pain points in business, a lot of times those pain points are not real. This is a very real thing.
And every step of this is a pain point. Like, I think that's the difference of like any industry. Truly terrible. So I think like if you ask me, like somebody asked me the other day, and I think they weren't ready for my answer, but somebody asked me the other day, like, where should they were like, I don't really know like what industry to go work in. Like, it seems like it's like AI or nothing. Yeah.
And I told them to go build in this space, like go work in this space, like either build it yourself or go find this. And they were like, ooh. Like, but truly, kid you not, like this is going to be one of the biggest in like spaces in the world. So some examples, we have Lufu, which I think questionable name, but started by the founders of Fitbit.
Naming.
Yeah, naming in general. Like we should have Nina on and do a naming episode.
That's a good idea.
Because the world needs your help, Nina. But so we have the Fitbit founders started this like, so it's like tracking, but for all of your like to like family tracking. So essentially, like imagine if your mom has an Oura ring, right? And like she might not be like,
I'd like to see the results of that, or would I?
But like also she might not really know like what to do with half of that information at all. And like my parents like certainly don't even want to know. Like, you know, like we can talk about like whether or not like my mom has sleep apnea. She does not want to know. And I'm sure that my brother would love Lufu to tell him how to take care of this situation. But like, you know, it's all of these things. So anyway, it's like, it's essentially like a tracker that allows you to kind of track like the health and well-being of your entire family network. There's Solace Health, which is actually like not AI, it's human-centered, which I love. It's essentially like a human, they hired tons and tons of nurses to be kind of like the intermediary between you and the doctor. So you can hire this middle layer. Yeah, to explain to you like what's happening, to help you advocate for the person that you're caring for, and to really like go to bat for you in places that are like, quite honestly, if once you deal with it, like it's like you're dealing with billing, but you're also dealing with like lack of like, you know, they're refusing certain care because they don't think that you're supposed to have it. Like it's all an insurance situation. And all of these things like require a certain amount of knowledge. And like, yes, an AI might be able to come in and help, but like one thing that's interesting here is that they're bringing in the nurses that I think like, as we know with great healthcare, like a human touch makes like all the difference. So I think that's really, really fascinating. And then we have Sakura, which is backed by Travis Kalanick and Equinox founder. I don't know if that's how you say his name. Yeah, who knows? But they're building like wellness apartments. Like, so it's like And they're not necessarily like targeting them at older people, like, but ultimately I think like there's a range of like sleep optimized circadian like rhythm lighting, like, and it's interesting because you're also like, it's like a community and you're screened for your values to make sure that you're going to add to the community, because they realize that actually wellness has a human connection component to it.
Hello.
Yeah. But I think
Blue,
it's
blue zones, anyone? Yeah. It's huge. I think it's huge.
Yeah, but I think it's like super interesting to be optimizing for community versus self, right? Like a lot of these are like Lufu and Sakura are both kind of looking at like one is a community of your own, like kind of, you know, nuclear family maybe, but the other one is like kind of like trying to make sure and improve kind of from a community aspect.
I mean, I think these are fascinating examples. And again, for me, it's like the deeper dive in them. Like Lufu, the fact that you're tracking family stats, like that makes so much sense. Just thinking about like, I just moved my mom's phone to like, you know, find me on an iPhone. Those types of things, like I really do want to know about. I would love to know her or ring information. Like all of that, I really would like to know. And I think just the framing of that, of not just my information, but wanting to know the whole family for a lot of different apps, a lot of different worlds.
And you could argue that it's like surveillance state, but like, to be honest, like, you know, like for example, like with Dave's mom's medication, like, so ultimately like they will have like a pendant, right? And it will be able to see like whether or not they've taken that medication, and Lufu taking that information and saying, oh no, actually she did take her pills today. That is really helpful. Like this is where the power of like things like this are going. Like it's very simple stuff, but it's like, again, a phygital like situation. Yeah. And I think the solace health, like being human centered and like building within that is, you know, I hope we see more of that. Yeah. I think it's fascinating. And then again, the deeper dive in the Sakura of as far as optimizing for community, like I think just all of those are like larger deep dives within what I'd love to see. And I think what, to your point, like what we're going to see more of. Yeah. And then the pendulum swing to this is that like self-health is bigger than ever, right? Like we're paying more out of pocket than we've ever paid before, not because, and this isn't an insurance conversation, though there is probably like a big part of the insurance conversation to be had here, but I think it's also that people are seeking like, they want to be in control themselves of what they know, right? Like, so it's like, again, like we could argue that it like insurance should be covering preventative health, and like that's why it's an out-of-pocket expense. But what this is telling you from an like the fact that people are spending so much money on it is that they want to know, right? So that's like the takeaway from me is, and like, yes, insurance should cover preventative health, but like the fact that we want this stuff is very interesting. And I think it actually speaks to this whole like authorship thing of like, we want to, as human beings forever, we want to have as much like control and autonomy. And like, we're about to enter like a new frontier of that. Like that is about to get really explosive. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a very interesting place for people to start to play with their brands. Yeah. We've been talking about that for a while. And the, 557 billion makes me feel much better in what I'm paying, because I'm paying a shit ton. So it makes me feel like no, you're definitely not alone. All right. Well, I hope you found this one interesting. It's got a lot going on in it, and we could make each one of these a true podcast episodes. We definitely could. And I'd love to hear from people what they would love to see a podcast of, a deeper dive in any of these, and share thoughts on the signs. Yeah. All right. Let us know. If you enjoyed it, share it with somebody. Give the algorithm a bit of love. Till next time. And also, like, if you're listening to this, I think it's coming out tomorrow. So see you in South by? Yeah. We got a lot going on. So we'd love to see you. Yeah. So come and say hello. Till then, stay curious. Ciao, ciao. That was it for this episode of Good Thinking. Don't forget to tune in next week. If you found this valuable, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to read on Substack for even more insights. And if you really liked it, drop us a heart. We'd love to hear from you. Ciao. Until next time.